Well, thanks again for joining us. As always, you can get interactive. On Facebook, we have Joy News on TV, and we have our interactive handle on Twitter, Joy News on TV. As you do order, please know that those messages you should send us could also enlighten us to do many other things than we assume. And we're on AM Talk, and today we'll have a one-on-one with the Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram Pram, Sam George. And Sam George is in the studio. But before then, we'd want to look at the ongoing activities with the Appointments Committee of Parliament, in which they've started vetting the last of 50 of the nominees of Deputy Ministerial designates by the President, Akufo-Addo. And we want to get some insight into many of the issues that have been taking place, but more so the current Deputy Minister who has been nominated to be in charge of procurement, Adwoa Safo.
In between budgeting and auditing is procurement. So we need to place as much emphasis on procurement to save our taxpayers' money from going down the drain. It is a government policy, and we stated it in our manifesto, that we would ensure that 70% of all government contracts go to locals. And Mr. Chairman, this is a way to promote our local manufacturers, suppliers, contractors, and to build their capacity. So if I'm given the nod, together with government, we will create the enabling environment for these contractors who are locals to build their capacity. Again, out of the 70%, it is again government policy, and it is in our manifesto, that 30% of the 70% will be procurement given to companies owned by women, companies owned by persons who are physically challenged, and again, companies that are established under the Youth Enterprise Fund. So we will work together with the Ministry of Women and Children, the Ministry of Trade, to ensure that we identify some of these companies and encourage them to bid for government contracts.
Adwoa Safo, she is also the Member of Parliament for Dom Kwabinya, but in the meantime, though, Minister designates for procurement, and we'll have a lot more to say about the activities taking place of the Minister and the various nominees at the Appointments Committee. But Sam George is already seated. A very good morning to you, Sam George.
Good morning.
How are you?
By God's grace, I'm doing well. And you?
We're good.
We thank God.
We're good. But let's speak to some issues quickly before we move on to some of the more substantive issues. The Deputy Minister designates for the Interior, Henry Korte, has promised severe sanctions against members of the Vigilante group, Delta Force and Invisible Forces following Friday's attacks, and he promised to deal with the activities of all other vigilante groups in the country threatening the rule of law. And we know this has become a critical issue in this country as a result of those attacks, especially by irate members of those vigilante groups on some members of the MPP, or at least one member, we're told.
Well, let me say a very good morning to our viewers and to your very good self. The issue of the Delta Forces in Kumasi is a sad one, especially bearing in mind the fact that this was a creation of the NPP. It created this problem, and now it's become a monster that they themselves have to contend with. You can clearly see the sense of entitlement. You can clearly see the effrontery with which these young men challenge the police. We've seen the videos. You saw the way one of them was up there insulting police officers and challenging them and daring them. I mean, nobody does that except you know that you have certain political minds behind you. And I don't think that we should be in a position where we should even have the Delta Forces in place. In the lead up to the last election, there was talk by all political parties with the then IGP to disband all such militia and vigilante groups. The NPP apparently has failed to do that. And you see, it's symptomatic of a number of problematic issues we've seen since the takeover of government by President Nana Danko Akufo-Addo. You've seen the assault on a senior police officer, ASP Nanka Bruce, at the Flagstaff House. Militia group, Invisible Forces. You've seen cars disappear from the presidential fleet, allegedly. Cars taken away by members of the Invisible Forces. We've seen the sad incident in Kentampo, where we're told that trained tour guides were sacked. By who? Invisible Forces. We've seen the northern branch of the Invisible Forces called the Kandahar Boys arrogate to themselves law enforcement powers to stop a legitimate demonstration that had been given permission by the police in Tamale. They stopped it because they felt that it would create a bad image for their government. We've seen this latest episode in the Ashanti region. It looks like everywhere you go, these invisible forces have become very visible, and they are creating all kinds of forces, all kinds of chaos in the country. And the police appears to be helpless. Now, if you follow the exegesis and the genesis of terrorist groups and separatist movements, this is how they begin. This exactly is how they begin. And I've said to many people in the NDC that God loves Ghana. Painful as it is that the NDC lost the last election, I think it's in the interest of this republic. Because imagine the mayhem that these invisible forces are causing, even when their government has won. Imagine what use they may have been put to by their paymasters and political godfathers if the election had not gone their way.
Well, that is far-fetched, is that not?
It's not far-fetched. The Akans have a saying that if you don't know death, you look at sleep. If I look at what is happening today, when they've won elections, you can only imagine what they would have done, the havoc they would have wreaked on ordinary Ghanaians if the elections had not gone their way. And it's a sad place for us to come to when we're known as a bastion of peace and stability. In fact, that's one of our major selling points for investment, the peace and stability of the republic. But it appears that we're not seeing that. And again, you expect that at times like this, the commander-in-chief would step up and speak.
You're talking about the president?
The president.
Well, that is why his appointee, who is a minister, doesn't.
He's not been approved by Parliament
for
yet.
Deputy,
he has no locus to instruct the police.
Deputy Minister of Interior, and Korte is promising that there will be severe sanctions.
Mr. Henry Korte is a big brother of mine, but
you should take his word for it, Mr. Sandra.
You can take his word for it, but for now it is just form, no substance. But Mr. Henry Korte has no authority to be calling any shots in our security services at the moment, because he's yet to be approved by Parliament. If the parliamentary approval process is for nothing, it will not be entrenched in our constitution. There's a very good reason why Parliament is versed with the power of approving the nominations of His Excellency the President. And so you want to see, look, when the elections were over and the NPP took over the reins of power, we saw the wanton destructions of state property, National Health Insurance offices, Youth Employment Authority offices, and all those offices, and the things that went on. And when those things happened, you expected the president to speak. He was silent for a very long time until he came to Parliament during the State of the Nation's address. And when he came to Parliament, he gave what you would term a half-hearted
well, before then, the president, in one of the events in which he was announcing some of his nominees, had also touched on the subject, even before the state.
Well, then he had not gathered enough media traction. But what I readily remember and what really enjoyed a lot of widespread media coverage was his comments.
Well, that was visible
in Parliament, exactly. But 24 hours after he gave that instruction, they were on rampage again up north.
Well, true.
It means.
But Mr. St. George, you would agree that for all the talk about vigilante groups in the NPP, We also have such replicas in the NDC. And so, is it not an onerous responsibility on the political parties and the political elite to perhaps have some conjoined consensus that we need to get rid of them or ban them from our politics?
I'm not going to sit here and
pontificate.
Yes, or play the ostrich and say that there are no such groups in the NDC. But in fact, you look at a scale, but what I'll do is put on a scale. In the NDC, readily one will talk about the Azoka Boys. The Azoka Boys, you'll be told, are a social group because they go beyond providing security at NDC congresses to also doing certain social intervention. In their area, in the Chogu area, in Tamale, they drill boreholes.
The Azoka Boys, you call them a social group.
Well, that's how.
We have on the line Emmanuel Sowate. Emmanuel Sowate is a security aspect. A very good morning to you, my good friend. Good morning to you, Mr. Sowate.
Yeah, talking to me, I hear you 2 out of 10, please.
I beg your pardon, sir.
I hear you 2 out of 10. I hear you 2. That's the level of clarity. 2 out of 10.
It means your sound is not clear.
My sound is not clear.
Yes, that's what I mean, sure.
Okay, so do we call you back or what do you think?
Yes, please try. Yes,
okay,
maybe
so
that's
call
good.
you back, yes. All right. Okay, we have to take a break. When we come back, we'll have a look. And we're touching on the subject of the whether or not to disband the various vigilante groups, not only in the MPP but also the NDC, and actually from our politics. And Emmanuel Sowate, a security aspect, is on the line. A very good morning to you, sir.
Yeah, I hear you 10 out of 10.
Okay,
Yes,
great. It's been a while, Mr. Sowate.
Yeah, bro. It's been a while.
All right. But how do we deal with these so-called vigilante groups?
Okay, why do you have the caveat so-called? I think that depending on the postcard they assume at a particular point, they might be described as fact. Or, I mean, very often food soldiers, vigilante, but what is inherent or enduring in all these descriptions is that they want to project some form of, I wouldn't say military. Military is too heavy, like police force, you understand? And I think that is where the concern lies. Having said that, let me add a footnote to this, that I think that it is good to encourage the use of various socioeconomic capabilities, various educational levels, that they are active participants in our body politics. What we have to try to shut out is this aspect of force, often characterized by the use of various accoutrements, knives, stones, slaps, of course, and weapons as the ultimate for now. Yeah.
At the end of the day, we know that, for example, we're having Henry Cotte. He's a member of Parliament as well, but also the Interior Minister designate for the deputy position, I mean. And he is promising severe sanctions against the affiliate group. Now, what should it take the political elite to perhaps clamp down on some of these groups?
Okay, yes. The political elite, I don't know whether you define that to include only those in active partisan politics or include those who are outside active partisan politics, i.e. civil society groups, pastors, imams, and other key actors. I'm saying that because, you see, when it comes to addressing these issues, you can have the short-term and then the long-term intervention. They are not necessarily always in harmony. Sometimes they conflict, and I explain. Let's take the short-term. When the police is come to arrest you, he looks at whether you've committed a crime, ceteris paribus. Okay. But then others might be interested in the predisposition factors like the social factors, economic factors, cultural factors, maybe peculiar the personality of the person, and permutations of this. But the policeman is just there to arrest you and prosecute you. Other actors would investigate that. So when it comes to dealing with vigilante, there are times that you have to arrest certain key people. The idea here is that if you don't do that, you then leave the issue of standardization. Standard in terms of what is crime, the degree of offense, the accompanying punishment. Because every individual, every group of people might have their own idiosyncrasies and their interpretation of what has happened. So, for example, specific, you slap somebody from one group, one political party. The other vigilante will say this slap is equivalent to maybe 40 slaps on your side of people of a particular standing. like it is hierarchical. They have their generals, they have their corporals. So depending on who you attack, in their own mind, they have what should be the company response. So when you do that, you subject interpretations of what is right and wrong to individual positions, and that might be at variance with the law. So then when the law comes in, when the police comes in, when the state comes in, what the state is doing is that it's sending a number of messages that the state is still the one that is in control of forces of cohesion. The state is the one that determines standards. The state is the one that determines accompanying punishment. So the police will go and arrest you. Now, when it comes to the arrest, I don't know whether we have time. When it comes to the police in particular, there are 4 critical things we look at. The first thing has to do with the effectiveness of the arrest. When we say effectiveness, we are not only talking about action, but also inaction. We are not only talking about how you arrest, but failing not to arrest on time. That affects, in a way, your efficiency. The other one is how you do it.
But Soate, we know that the police, for the last decade and a half, have not been able to take critical actions against these groups or individuals within those groups because I don't know whether it's because of fear of some reprisals within their rank and file, etc. Why is that?
Okay, so I was coming to that. You're talking now about issue of legitimacy. Okay, so the first one was effectiveness. The second one is how you do it. In terms of showing the people that you arrest respect, dignity, some level of self-respect. You arrest the person, but how you do it is important. Because if you don't do it right, it affects your legitimacy in the eyes of different actors. Because you are dealing with different audiences, monitoring the police at one time. You are dealing with the international community. So legitimacy. The third one is what the lawyers will talk about, procedural justice. You understand? When it comes to dealing with the process, how distributive it is. Now, the distributive talks about the fairness of it. And then the last one has to do with the lawfulness of the action. Now, when you have these 4 pillars, what you are trying to do is to enhance your legitimacy across actors. When you don't combine this effectively, some people will perceive you to be for them, some people will perceive you to be against them, depending on the context. Some people will think that nothing can be done to them, as you have rightly alluded to. Some will say, no, you have been arresting people, but sometimes it takes time.
Now, Mr. Soate, what should be done? We know that this group is affiliated to the MPP, but we also know that there are other like-minded groups within the NDC too. At the end of the day...
No, I'm not focused. Let me be clear, because the politics in Ghana can be interesting. Let me be clear. I'm not focusing on any single political party. If you had said that, maybe I didn't hear that you were focused on one group.
No, it's a general discussion we're having. So my next question, Soate, is, so how do we deal with it as a state in terms of roping in the political actors and also the state actors to say, well, importantly, these groups are
okay, so the
here.
I want to be sure about the here is talking about vigilantism. Okay, so I'll proceed from there. How do we deal with that? I talked about the short term and the long term. I talked about the short term, making sure that the police would arrest, and I talked about 4 elements when they are doing the arrest, because you want to enhance your legitimacy in the sight of different audiences that you engage
Yes,
with.
you have.
The other thing we can do has to do with sensitization. And then the third thing is the political elite, this time defined specifically to mean those who play active role in various political parties. The idea is that when these foot soldiers are moving with politicians, whether they want to maintain power or they want to retain power, or they want to get closer to power, they are with these foot soldiers sometimes day and night. In that constant engagement where the politicians consult them almost invariably every time, what can we do? They are giving these foot soldiers some promises. Sometimes the promises are big, but in the mind of the foot soldiers, this sacrifice is equivalent to maybe a contract, a job, and other perquisites. But in the mind of the politician, maybe that is not it. Or even if it is, the duration would have to be maybe over a period of 2 years. So when there's this contract, and then the politicians get power or retain power, and the soldiers think that they are now being sidelined, that a number of them do at various levels, from national to constituency, then the youth will become agitated. 2 things happen within the political party. Those at the national sometimes may understand the local dynamics and the imperatives in the long run. Those in the top or at the top may not always see the picture at the down or with the grassroots. So the executive at the grassroots would always be telling the executive at the national. That's what you are doing. The implications for the next elections, the implication for mobilizing these youth in future is being jeopardized. And so you have the tensions at the national level where the political party have assumed a new poster as the man or the woman or the party for every Ghanaian, as against their own internal politics, who are looking at how do we maintain and win power. And I think that tension should be managed well, because if the politicians don't understand that there's a relationship between these youth getting angry and their own physical security and safety, over time, when these youth get angry, now it starts from what? Anger. If you are not careful, it's not handled well. Next time, stones will be thrown. Next time, cattle is within the same party, and then you might have permutations of this and then weapons. And why do I conclude that way? Based on my experience as a top UN advisor in Nigeria. I saw it today.
Okay.
I saw it today.
All right. Thank you very much, Emmanuel Sowate, and thanks again for your contribution on this subject. And so the politicians don't want to take a decision on this. You say Kandahar boys, their social group, etc. Azoka boys and all that. But at the end of the day, the mayhem they cause, and sometimes the reprisal actions that they take against each other and against innocent citizens sometimes leads to some injuries and some chaos, wouldn't you say?
Okay, you see, the question I made before we went into the telephone interview, I spoke about the fact that we should look at the skills. Okay, we'll talk about the Azoka boys at the NDC, but when you come into the NPP, you start from starting up north. You have the Bolgatanga Bulldogs, then you have the Kandahar boys. Then as you come down south or middle belt, you've got the Delta forces. Then you come even further, you have the Invisible Forces, you have the Action Troopers, Lord Commerce boys, you have the Bamba forces, the Bamba boys. I mean, it's a plethora of groups. And so you cannot even put them on the same scale. However, that said, I believe that militancy has no place in our politics. Because when, like I was saying before again, when you look at Nigeria, many of these militant groups that have metamorphosed into terrorist groups started out with the blessings of political elements.
Isakaba.
Isakaba is one that you remember. The OPC.
Yeah.
The APC. The Adwa People's Congress. Okay, started up north. Isakaba. I mean, and so we need to be very, very, very careful where we're going, because you realize that the police is helpless. The Ghana police is actually helpless.
Why?
Because they can't pick up anybody without getting a call from a big politician saying that, hey, that's my boy.
So it means that as politicians, we're all perpetrators to this action.
Absolutely, and government is most culpable.
All right. Let's look at the next subject. Yesterday, I heard you speaking on a subject about how perhaps there needs to be an extension of the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program.
Yes.
To even rural Accra, because there are some forms of extreme poverty.
Absolutely.
Is that what you meant?
Yes.
How?
An investigative journalist with your network, Mr. Kwete Nati, did a piece where a very sad story of mothers or parents in my constituency selling their children to go on the Volta Lake to carry out fishing. Basically, selling their children to go into upload or enforced slavery.
Hasn't it been an age-old
for
practice?
700 Ghana cedis? Yes, but that's why I've been elected as Member of Parliament. I'm not supposed to come and continue the age-old practices that do not inure to the benefit of my people. I've been elected by my people because they think that I represent a movement away from the status quo, and we need to change things. It can't be business as usual. And that's why, for me, I'm speaking up and speaking out and saying that, look, we have extreme forms of poverty in my constituency, not just my constituency, but along the coast and in some parts of inland Greater Accra. When governments talk about poverty and poverty alleviation programs, the focus is primarily at times in the central region and up north. They forget Greater Accra. Everybody looks at mainland Accra, looks at East Legon and Trasacco and thinks that that is Accra. But we have Accra proper. There's rural Accra. It's unconscionable. The 30 minutes away from the heart of Accra, in Ningo, a mother is selling her own child for 700 Ghana cedis. As a nation, 60 years in 21st century Ghana, it's unacceptable. First and foremost, we must have a multifaceted approach to it. I intend to call a community meeting with the chief of the chiefs of Mango Chunya in Aitepa, where these reports have come out from, and engage with the communities and do some level of sensitization. Again, I intend to work with the Ghana Police Service. There needs to be a clampdown on fishing boats in the Volta area that operate in the Volta Lake, around Akosobo, around Yeji. There are too many school-going children in enforced slavery there. A month ago, I was called by a native of my hometown who works in the North Town district. And she had come across 2 girls who were basically being used as slaves. And when she engaged them, they spoke the Dangme, the local, the Ningo dialect. And so she called me and said, these are 2 girls who say that they were taken away from their grandmother's place and they're working here and they're being maltreated. What can we do? So I put her in touch with the police commander there. We got social welfare to go and pick up the children and trace their homes, and they were reunited with their families 3 weeks ago. But how many more of this can I continue to do? Until and unless the police service becomes proactive, we must not just tackle it at the angle of the parents, but also those who create the demand. The parents are the supply, but we must tackle it from the demand and supply angles. So as you try to sensitize the parents and put in punitive measures for parents, because I think that poverty is no excuse for you to sell a child. It's unconscionable. I mean, it's wickedness. We can't have that
Is it a sale in the traditional context?
We can call it all kinds of things. But when you send, in this instance, the mother sent a 4-year-old child. You send a 4-year-old child onto a fishing boat, and that 4-year-old child, when the nets get entangled in the water, is thrown into the water to go and untangle the nets and come back. If that child gets drowned, that's the end. A 4-year-old child.
And many of them get drowned.
Exactly. I mean, we all helped our parents. We all worked as growing children. But then there are limits, there are jobs that children must do. I'm not one who sticks to that children must do no job. Absolutely not. We're Africans. We grow up by helping our parents. If our parents have a shop, when you close from school and you do your homework, you go and sit in the shop and help, because it's part of the training that we get as Africans. If there are home chores to do, you do those home chores. But then there are jobs for children, and there are jobs that children should just not be doing. I can't for the life of me find any justification why a 4-year-old child should be thrown into a river or the lake to go and untangle nets. And so the parent who is supplying that child or sending that child out, because of the pittance that that parent will be receiving at the close of the fishing season in the name of that child, is using that child as a cash cow. That's wrong. Secondly, whoever is the canoe owner, why is that person not putting his or her own child in the boat and taking other people's children? That is wrong. It's unconscionable. And a 4-year-old child has no place in a fishing boat, but in school. I mean, 4 years old. I mean, we as a people, it comes to a point where we must pinch ourselves.
At the end of the day, the affected communities, George,
yes,
relatively along the estuaries of the Volta, down south.
Yeah.
So we have the Dangbe areas, the Volta areas, and we know that from where you are, some of those communities are also located in your constituency. The sensitization first needs to start from those communities, because that's where you can reach them easily. How would you start that sensitization?
Well, we're going to start with community meetings. And you see, one thing that I've realized is, and it's a very good thing that you realize in the Volta region. Most parents in the Volta region would borrow to put their 4-year-olds and their 6-year-olds and their 10-year-olds in school. But those of us in the Dangbe areas are yet to have that appreciation of education. And it's a reality, it's a stark reality. And that is why the fishing is not going on in the Dangbe areas. It's going on the Volta, in the Volta areas, and in parts of the eastern region. But because they are not getting children from the Volta region, they come down to the Dangbe areas and pick these children and send them to Yeji, send them to Akosombo. That's where the problem is. And so I'm going to, I discussed this even yesterday with Honorable Doyo, the MP for Ada, and we want to start something along our coast, from Ningo Pram through Sege to Ada. We need to sensitize our people, meet with them and let them understand. But you see, that's why I was calling for the expansion of LEAP. If you look at the coverage of LEAP in our area and compare it to other parts of the country, it is woeful.
Because?
Well, because the targeting has not focused on our areas.
Or perhaps also the assumption is that...
Based on the assumption that there is no extreme poverty, it's Greater Accra.
But we have some isolated.
In fact, in this case, I want to celebrate somebody who put his foot down when he was Minister for Employment and Labor Relations. At that time, LEAP was under that ministry. It wasn't under the Ministry of Gender. It was under the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations, Honorable E.T. Mensah. It was under his time that Ningo Pram even got figured or factored. But previously, before he became Minister for Employment and Labor Relations, Ningo Pram did not receive one, there was not even one family receiving a LEAP grant. Thanks to him, we have close to about 500 families receiving LEAP grants. But that is woeful. 500 families is less than the size of one deprived village. And so that is why I'm saying that the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Honorable Otiko Afisa-Jaba, needs to begin, and she's part Krobo. She needs to begin to look back home and see the challenges that are going on.
She's only a
there.
minister for her Kroboland, is it?
No. Well, but she needs to begin to look back home. She needs to realize that there's a real problem in Greater Accra.
Because that's a reality.
It's a reality.
Okay. At the end of the day, we also need to have the traditional authorities also come in.
Absolutely.
And in which that we need to have the various family heads also come in.
Exactly.
In those sensitization or perhaps the engagement that you want to do with them, they should be critical.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm not going. I intend to run this in conjunction, and especially under the auspices of the traditional leaders.
But my case is you can't do this alone.
Absolutely not.
It's
as
financially exhaustive.
And as Member of Parliament, I'm going to spend a chunk of my time in the Chamber of Parliament in Accra. But the traditional leaders sit in the communities. They know what goes on in the communities.
How often do you go to the constituency?
I'm in my constituency every week.
Okay.
Every weekend I'm there. There are even times when in the course of the week, when there's the need for me to be in the constituency, especially on Tuesdays when most of our fishing communities don't go fishing, I'm in the constituency.
We'll see how that goes. Yeah. But let's move on to a more substantive issue that you have been talking about in Parliament. Is about President Akufo-Addo having directed an indefinite freeze on the purchase of vehicles for the presidency, and then we'll come to the issues of the budgets and also for various MMDAs. What do you make of it? We know that it's as a result of the concerns that have been raised by the Chief of Staff that the vehicle stock at the presidency have been depleted in such a way that they have no options than to use what they have in the meantime within the dire constraints that financially they find the coffers of government.
I think it's just cosmetic.
Which is? The directive?
The directive is cosmetic.
Why?
We've seen many of the new
You served
ministers.
at the presidency, didn't you?
Yes, I did. We've seen several ministers.
Did you buy a saloon car?
No, I didn't buy my saloon car. After my term when our time in office came, I returned my car. But the bottom line here is we've seen a number of the ministers, the new ministers. Many of them are parliamentarians. And in fact, during this period, they're all coming to Parliament because they have to come for their appropriations for their ministries and agencies under their ministries to be approved. And we see the vehicles they come with. Many of them are driving in 2017 Land Cruisers. Many of the ministers are coming with brand new cars. We are seeing them.
You mean 2017 registered?
Oh, I'm telling you, 2017 registered Land Cruisers.
Perhaps maybe they bought them from Parliament. Because I know Parliament now is a new year.
We've not even completed the processes for the for even the facility, the loan facility. We've not even been told that given the terms. Government has not yet completed with the bank yet the facility, so it is not that.
It's smooth.
Yes, it's not that. They are buying cars.
So you're saying it's just a facade?
It's cosmetic.
Cosmetic.
It's cosmetic and aimed to give a veneer of being responsive to the social needs. I mean, it's political. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, Apart from that, yesterday we heard the Minister for Gender tell us that she's giving up her state bungalow for it to be used as an orphanage of sorts. Again, you smile at that. I mean, if she really wants to do that, then she should give up her salary and give up her official vehicle.
What do you
also.
mean by that? They should get a salary.
She's
entitled to salary.
No, but she's also entitled to a state bungalow as a minister, and she says that she wants to use her bungalow to take care of orphans.
As a choice within the.
So then the orphans who will be taken care of, who will be put in the bungalow, they will eat. You should use the salary. You see, some of these things are cosmetic, very, very cosmetic. When you have these one-offs, and underneath the current, the real thing is going on.
But is that not all about politics, trying to respond to the needs of the people?
Well, if you are being truly responsive to the needs of the people, then that's fine. The needs of the Ghanaian people is not about whether they buy a new car for a minister or whether they do not buy a new car for a minister. The question you should ask yourself is why, if you think that there are too many, we are buying too many cars, why do you appoint 110 in the first place?
We have Dr. Ali Dusedo. He's a political scientist with the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Roland. I think Roland will do. All right. But now we know that there's this directive from the presidency that for now, no new cars will be bought. Of course, we know that it's got some implications and it's supposed to appeal to the ordinary Ghanaian, is that not it?
Yeah, thank you so much, Roland. I think one of the concerns a lot of Ghanaian taxpayers have is how their tax monies have been used. And we have always been saying that running a government efficiently is the best form of democratic governance. And efficiency simply means using a very limited resources, whether capital or human resources, to be able to make greater achievements. So the directive that no car should be bought by the streets could be looked at from the point of efficiency. And that is good once people are able to obey it. But now my concern is, this is not the first time in the history of the Fourth Republic that the presidency or the executive arm of government have issued directives to ministries, and they flout those directives with impunity, and nothing happened. So if you say that, some people may think it is populist, appealing to the sentiments of people who are so much concerned about the large number of size of government that have been appointed, and they were equating this large number to the amount of money that will be spent into managing them. So if the president comes out with this directive, we will look at it as a measure of mitigating the cost on the public purse that's caused by the elephant-sized government that he's going to form. But it's good once we are able to respect it. But will we respect it? That is one. And two, most of the ministries procure vehicles from different perspectives or from different sources. You could get a project with maybe UNDP or maybe WASH, and then as part of the project you can buy a vehicle to monitor those particular implementation of that project. Or it could be a bilateral relation or project that you've gotten, and then as part of that particular money you can buy a car to be able to monitor and implement those projects. So if the government says they shouldn't buy a new car, is it saying that they shouldn't buy a new car from government revenue, or they should not buy a car at all, even if it has to do with a project that they are going to work on and they need such a vehicle to be able to help implement that project? So I think they have to be very clear about the perspective that they are coming from, and then also make sure that that directive is respected and implemented. Other than that, people would think it is populist.
At the end of the day, isn't it the whole idea that government needs to appeal to the conscience of those that elected the government into office? More importantly, when the refrain since the Kufuor-led government had been in office is that the coffers of the state were not in the best of positions or perhaps shapes.
Yes, I some of these policies, if not taken care of, if not well managed, could lead to a complete deception. Because if you know you can't do something and say you're going to do it, then later on the citizens realize that you are actually not doing it. Then they will think you were deceiving them. So it is better you give directives or policies that you can implement to the best of your ability, and then you go ahead to do it, so that citizens will judge you not just on your ability to perform, but on the honesty side of the government. Honesty is very important. I know propaganda is one of the ways people run government, but sometimes the more honest you are with the people, the more transparent you are with the people, the more you win their trust, and the more they are willing to work with you. You remember in the previous administration, we had the president and the ministers have decided to give was it 10% of their salaries?
Yes, they did. We're told that it amounted to about 2.3 or 2.4 million or 5.
And then that money will be used to build some of the cheap compounds and all those things. But later on, people were questioning the feasibility of such a directive, even though it made the government to look so nice and so caring in the face of the ordinary people. Not all of them, though. But people thought that this was a proper deception. Because if they said, people, they said that 2.5 was realized because people started asking questions about that money, that cut, and what was going to happen. And even in the previous administration, people thought that, maybe they said they're going to give a 10% of their salary to state, to do this. But they had increased, allegedly, or there was several ways that they could get allowances elsewhere to cater for that particular differences. So the point I want to make is that, Roland, it's a good thing. Once we are able to strictly enforce it and then reduce the expenditure, unnecessary expenditure, quote and unquote, from the side of government, we'll be able to manage our economy very well and then put enhance the welfare and well-being of Ghanaians. That is the most important thing. But my fear is it should not just be a directive and then people will flout it and nothing happens. If Ghanaians realize it later on, then they will think that the government was deceiving them. Well,
thank you very much. Dr. Ali Dusedo with the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana.
Roland, we've been meeting in committees in Parliament and we've been passing the appropriations for the various agencies. And that's why I said this is
cosmetic.
Every government agency that has come before us, in their budget breakdown, approved by the Minister for Finance, who was appointed by this very same president, they have line items that we've approved in the budget for them to buy vehicles. Every single, almost every agency is buying a new vehicle. Ministries are buying new vehicles. In fact, many of the new ministries that have been created, a chunk of their goods and services and capex is going into the purchase of vehicles. Because they say that they are new ministries, they don't have anything. Yeah. So what is this talk about us not having a directive? Is the president saying that after sending his budget statement to us and asking us to approve it for him, in which he puts the purchase of vehicles, then he won't buy the vehicle. So the money we approve for, we approve, which is going to be factored in GIFMIS. And each expenditure item is tied to the budget approval. What will happen?
But we also know that this directive has come about because if you get the import of the statement, ideally they're supposed to be having some vehicles to be using in the interim, or perhaps maybe for the next year or two. But the fleet of vehicles at the presidency perhaps also are not enough.
Roland, your platform is a very big platform. And when it happens, I'll come and you give me my stone. I'm telling you, this is a cosmetic thing. Give this government tops 1 year. You see the new fleet of presidential cars. I'm telling you, we'll see, we are in this country. They will not go 4 years without...
Do you know some of your colleagues at the presidency who bought or have not even returned to their cars?
You have to ask the chief of staff. That was his purview. Me, I have absolutely no idea about it. I was given one Camry and that is all I had, and I've returned it. As to other staffers, I can't speak. But I know that most people have returned.
If you had wanted to buy your Camry, how much would you have bought it for?
I don't know because I didn't start the process.
It's more of responses of convenience for you, is that not?
Absolutely. It's the truth. The truth is simple. Yes. If I tried to buy the car, they would have done evaluation.
So what makes you think that?
They would have done evaluation for me. Since I didn't try to buy it.
What makes you think that some of the utterances from the presidency are perhaps also untrue?
Oh, because that one, I'm telling you that we...
You are saying those are cosmetic.
No,
what you're telling me is...
no, I'm telling you the truth. If I bought my car and I'm sitting
I'm not
here
saying you're lying.
and sitting here and saying that I didn't buy my car, then it will be an untruth and it will be cosmetic.
Let's go to the budget.
You get me? But this one, Obahama inte, Kashigbe.
No
Obama
so we're looking at the budget, and apparently the minority caucus, which you belong, has won that the robust Ghanaian economy built by the immediate past NDC government, led by John Dramani Mahama, will soon melt down following the introduction of some austerity measures and huge budgetary allocations. What did you mean by that? We're told the economy is not good. The John Mahama-led government did not leave a very good economy in the first place. The government in its 2017 budget statement gave indication that it will slash all statutory funds by 25%. And your side of the house seemed to be worried to finance one district, one factory, etc. Now we're being told that your side of the house, again, is saying government has not made enough provision for its $1 million one constituency policy, etc.
Roland, if you take the MPP's budget,
is it the MPP's government budget or the government of Ghana?
Whichever way you choose to call it, is all semantics. If you take the budget and you take the MPP's manifesto, you would realize that they made separate promises at different times. They made a promise for one constituency, $1 million. They made one district, one factory, one village, one dam.
Free SHS.
Free SHS. And because of this gargantuan Obolobo promises, Ghanaians voted for them. Now, you take this budget statement, and on page 3, paragraph 20 of the budget, Mr. Speaker, the 2017 budget will set in motion the following key policy priorities and flagship projects. Then they start. Establishment of the Infrastructure for Poverty Eradication Project, IPEP. Under this project, every constituency will be allocated a cedi equivalent of $1 million to combat poverty and improve the lives of rural dwellers and deprived communities. 2, implementation of the One District, One Factory program. 3, establishment of the Zongo Development Fund. 4, rollout of the National Identification Scheme. 5, rollout of free SHS. 6, rollout of National Digital Addressing System. 7, restoration of teachers and nurses training allowances. Page 3 to page 4, paragraph 20 of the budget. Now, when you go to the attachment appendixes, you don't see a line item for all of these promises. These promises were also in the manifesto. All you see is one lump sum for IPEP. Now, even when you take the IPEP figure, there are 275 constituencies. 275 times 1 million is what? $275 million. At the government exchange rate of 4.35, that is giving you in excess of 1.2 billion. But for IPEP, they've allocated 950 million. So even the 1 million, one constituency, they've not allocated enough money for it. Then when you ask them that, where is the allocation for...
Did they say each year or for
each year? They said each year, 1 million each year. So over the 4-year term, 4 million per constituency. When you ask them that, where is the allocation for one district, one factory? Then they tell you that, it's in the IPEP. So it means that the one district, one factory, the money is going to come out of the 1 million, one constituency. That is not even enough. When you ask them, where is the one village, one dam money? They say, it's IPEP. When you ask them, Zongo Development Fund, you told us you are going to demarcate 294 million for Zongo Development Fund. Where is it? They say, it's in IPEP. So you sit and ask yourself, okay, even the 950, take out 294. Then take out the cost of a district, a factory per district. Where's the money? You see why we said this is a 419 budget. And then, you see, the most painful part, and look, the NPP government is coming to collapse the public service and civil service just to fulfill their gargantuan promises, which that one to do fail.
In what way?
Okay. Roland, if I tell you that to finance this utopian promises,
Utopian?
I'm telling you, to finance these promises, we are taking a bodam forsika, madmen's money. Will you believe me?
Which one? The money is meant for?
The IGF for Pantine, Ankafo, Accra Psychiatric. The finance minister has capped it.
Is it not over simplifying the issue?
It's not.
Is that the
no?
The IGF.
If you talk to Pantine, if you go to Pantine and talk to the administrators,
we have Kolibu, we have the other.
All of them.
What's wrong with that?
I'll tell you what is wrong with that. The National Blood Bank. We are taking the National Blood Bank's IGF. The National Blood Bank charges 50 Ghana cedis per liter or ounce of blood. Pint of blood, thank you. 50 Ghana cedis, that's equivalent of about $10. Now you are taking 66, you are capping it at 66%, which means that when the National Blood Bank charges 50 Ghana, they get only 66% of 50 Ghana, which is about 35 Ghana. But they need the full 50 Ghana because when the bill came to Parliament, Parliament said we will cap it at just exactly how much they need. So it then means that when they collect the blood now, they don't even have enough money to process the blood. So it means the blood bank is going to collapse. When you look at Nurses and Midwife Training Council, they charge fees for the conduct of exams. And those exams are the ones that certify nurses that work in our clinics and take care of me and you. Now, the revenue from the exam fees, President Anado and his finance minister, Mr. Kenoforiata, they've capped it at 66%. Again, it was spent at exactly how much. It means that they will not have enough money to conduct the exam.
It means that so if you generate 100, you're supposed to give.
It means that before you even get your 66, the finance ministry will take 34. So Kolebu.
So if you generate 100, 34 goes to government.
Straight.
Into the consolidated fund.
And that money is going to be used to fund IPEP and free SHS.
What's wrong with it?
It's robbing Peter to pay Peter. Not robbing Peter to pay Paul. You are robbing Peter to pay Peter himself. So what is happening is I say I like, you tell me that, oh, Sam George, I need a new shoe. Then I tell you, oh, don't worry. Then I come to your house, Roland, and steal your television and go and sell your television and use the money to buy you a shoe. That's what this government is doing. Look, GBC provides public broadcast services to government. They broadcast for free all government activities. It costs them close to 200 million Ghana cedis every year. You know that the painful thing, and if you go to page 192 of the budget, for those who have copies of the budget, you will see what I'm talking about from page 192, the capping of the IGFs. In fact, some start on page 191. If you go there, you realize that, let me give you GBC for example. GBC is on page 1, Ministry of Information. Yeah, page 191. GBC, they used to keep 100% of their revenue.
They used to, yes.
Yes.
But now they're only going to keep
66%.
What's wrong with that?
What is wrong with that is that GBC already owes 18 million Ghana cedis in electricity bills. 18 million Ghana cedis. And again, that explains the legacy debt we've been talking about.
Is it not now the onerous responsibility of the management of these institutions to make sure that they improve their processes?
So you know when GBC came to meet the communication committee, they came with budget projections of maintaining 100% of their IGF. Only for us at the committee level to tell them that, Masa, you can't keep 100%, you can keep only 66%. Even with the 100%, these institutions are struggling. Kolebu, all the technical universities, the polytechnics, now called technical universities, all the universities, Legon, Tech, UCC, all of them, colleges of education, all of them, their IGF is being capped. Government is taking their IGF. That's lazy economics. That's lazy management. How can you tell me that? And you see, for me, the most unconscionable ones, GBC. And then you expect GBC to be able to keep all of their transmission sites running in the country, to carry government projects as public broadcast. Blood Bank, the National Blood Bank. So it means that, touch wood, God forbid, when the ordinary Ghanaian is involved in an accident and he needs blood, the blood bank will not be able to give him blood because...
But that's preemptive. Nothing is going to happen like that.
Who says nothing is going to happen like that? The people need 50 Ghana cedis to process a pint of blood. You are giving them 35 cedis. So it means that if they manage to process the blood, they will do a shoddy job. They will not screen properly the blood and be sure that there is no HIV in the blood. Or they will end up giving somebody who is
B, is it not just simplifying the issue?
You see, it's bread and butter. This is bread and butter issue. This is the reality. We can sit here and speak the big jargon and confuse our viewers. But the reality on the ground is that there is a capping.
So that is why you think that because of the capping, especially all that's supposed to be
madmen, Abadan for Pantine. When they charge madmen for treating them, when we charge madmen for treating them, we will take their money and go and give to finance ministry.
You even have problems with reduction of the allocations to district assemblies. So.
Look, and that is in the constitution.
Are you taking the budget again?
No, I'm going to the constitution of Ghana.
It says what?
Article 252, clause 2.
I've read that article. Yeah?
It says, subject to the provision of this constitution, Parliament shall annually make provision for the allocation of not less than 5% of the total revenue of Ghana to the district assemblies for development, and the amount shall be paid into the district assemblies common fund in quarterly installments. They've made an allocation of 1.5 billion for district assemblies. They've dropped it from 7.5% to 25%, to 5%, a reduction of 33%. We're not talking. Give us our full 5%. The full 5%, if you calculate 5% of government's total revenue as stated in this budget, it's supposed to be 1.75 billion. They are giving us 1.5 billion. So there's a shortfall of 2.5 billion for our district assemblies. Now, do not forget that today, many of the people in the civil service, who today we call Akrachifo, who are the bureaucrats pushing, many of the people who helped the finance minister to put together this budget, many of them went to district assembly basic schools. So many of them didn't go to the big schools. They went to the village primary schools. Those village primary schools are constructed by the district assembly's common fund. So what we are saying is that the children in Panchrendo in my constituency.
Where?
Panchrendo. Pronounce it.
Panchrendo.
You did well.
Jingle.
Panchrendo enge somesi. Ko obje chopoli. After chopoli, some Panchrendo. Now the children in that village who will need a new classroom, 6-unit classroom block, to be able to complete from class 1 to class 6, that need the Ningo Pram District Assembly. The District Assembly is not going to get its fair share, even in violation of the 1992 Constitution, which is the holy grail for us. Why? Because President Nana wants to do free SHS. So, madmen, our blood bank, our universities, nurses, public service broadcasters.
Why don't you just say even health institutions instead of saying?
You see, you're not comfortable that you're taking madmen's money, but that's the truth.
And as a result of that, I've heard.
And you see, they tell us that the economy is bad. Yet the MPC has dropped the rate. The prime rate has dropped to 23.5. Yes. You cannot do that. You cannot do that in an economy that is not robust.
I don't get you.
If the economy wasn't robust,
perhaps you want to give good signals to the banking institutions.
You only give good signals. You don't give good signals in a vacuum. You give good signals on the back of strong macroeconomic indicators. It shows you that the macroeconomy is solid. We've built a solid macroeconomic base for them, and they're running on it. It is only because the macroeconomy is good. That's why we've appointed an Obolobo government, 110 ministers and counting, because more will come. When they create the new regions, they will also appoint ministers and deputy ministers.
How many regions will be created?
They say they will create 4, but you never know. These people, they can make it 10. But you see, in wrapping up, we need to realize that where we are as a country, we need to start thinking about the future of this country. The government is engaged in running down the NDC administration because it scores them cheap political points. Whereas the most critical thing that they promised Ghanaians, they said that they told the nursing trainees, teacher trainees, and young university graduates that the NDC government was unconscionable to have gone into the IMF program, which they claim put a freeze on employment into the public sector. And so as soon as they came, they were going to renegotiate it and terminate it or make it favorable for us. They've extended the same deal by 3 years. So it means that to the university graduate who voted for the MPP, thinking that in 2017 they were going to lift.
Which of the committees do you belong to in Parliament?
Me, I'm on the Public Accounts and Communication Committee. Thinking that they were going to lift the net freeze. Well, reality sets in till 2020, we are going to be under IMF. To the nursing trainees.
So you're saying it's not wrong after all?
I'm not saying, I have always said it was the right thing to do for this country. Nanado told us that it was not. President Nanado told us that it was the wrong thing and that he will do the right thing. He's coming, he's continuing what he claimed was wrong. So we know who is telling the Ghanaian people the truth or who is not. And let me just use this to say a very good morning to all our national service personnel who did not vote for the NDC because they thought that President Nanado was offering them something proper. We increased the national service allowance to 559 Ghana cedis. President Nanado has come in and he's dropped it to 430 Ghana. How market?
Well, we've had a release from the National Service Secretariat. That said that that has not been affected in any way, and rather they had sent the allocations through the approval processes with the Committee of Parliament, and they hope that. And
the figure they have sent to us is 430 Ghana. Look, right now, look, the reality is setting in. The reality is setting in. Drivers for change. They are all taking off the stickers on their cars. Massa, the man told us that he was coming to reduce fuel prices. The price of fuel is galloping.
No, but seriously, government doesn't set the prices.
Oh, government, now they are telling us government that, but when they were in opposition...
It's not government telling them.
But
I know.
Well, they campaigned with it. They campaigned with it. They told us. In fact, all of us in rented accommodation.
Well, just last week or so, I think the fuel price dropped by some 2% or so.
It dropped by 2%, but before that...
2 cities or 2?
What 2 cities?
2%.
It dropped by 2%. But by before that, so it had gone up. Before that, it had gone up by almost 12%.
Well, cumulative.
Yes, cumulatively. It has been jumping. And you see, in March alone, the CD lost value by 5%.
You seem to be studying a lot of the macro as
well as the micro. It's important. It's important. When you have a government that is putting you on tenterhooks and taking madmen's money, you need to start looking at economics very well.
Sam George, thanks for joining me.
It's a pleasure.
Sam George is a member of Parliament for Ningo Pram Pram. And thanks for joining me once again. Oh no, my time is up further. And we have to look at other issues. And now let's get you the story of a 14-year-old girl who was raped to near death at Nkoko in the Eastern region. The victim has since been mentally unstable, and we'll bring you a lot more in Ohimin Temia's reports.
The victim was strangled by her attackers in an attempt to murder her after having sexual intercourse with her intense. The attackers confessed the plan was to avoid arrest, but a good Samaritan who found her in an unconscious state saved her life. That act has since left the girl with walking difficulties whilst she bleeds profusely from her private parts in life-threatening complications. Police have so far arrested 3 suspects in connection with the defilement. The third person was arrested over the weekend.
Were able to arrest a third person who is in the person of Audu Kamiru, 18 years. And according to the victim, it was Audu Kamiru who even booted her down before they had access to her. So we are still left with 2 to be apprehended.
But the traumatized girl says she is being haunted by the ordeal she went through. As if that is not enough, some residents in her neighborhood have been making fun of her. She tells me she has been contemplating suicide to end it all.
The flow of the blood has now increased. My dresses are soiled every now and then. I feel uncomfortable. Anytime I remember the ordeal I went through, I always think of ending my life.
This means little has been done to improve the life of the poor girl since that near-death incident. The Children's Act recommends victims like this 14-year-old girl should be supported with counseling and shelter. But this is absent in the Nkoko area.
Because we have no other alternative, they still remain where they live. And just imagine the stigma, you see, and the trauma they've gone through. At the moment, she's still with her granny. And to us, that's not the best because the granny has very little to offer. terms of maybe counseling or what have you. Yeah, so if there's a shelter, she's relocated there, maybe a social worker takes her through some form of counseling. That will heal her, her wounds better or faster.
And we've made it a point to follow on this subject throughout the rest of the day, for each programming day. And we have Ohiming Teria on the line. Ohiming, good morning.
Good morning, Roland.
And what's the latest? Have we had a lot more assistance coming to the young lady?
Yes, thanks for asking. For now, three people have contributed to support this poor girl. First, on Friday, a group of sailors based in the United States donated 2,000 Ghana cedis to be spent on her medical examination. And also on the Saturday, two other philanthropists, Mr. Dexter Ege and Yvonne Boisima, all based in Accra, traveled all the way to Nkoko, where they donated $500 US, and also some assorted food items and dresses for the girl. As we speak now, she is currently in Kumasi with a granny. We started the process of planning her story at the Confanoche Teaching Hospital. This morning, she is due to meet a psychologist to also help her out. And I must say that, yes, the incident has had taken a toll on her, and sometimes the way she reacts and the way she behaves calls for psychological attention.
Now, who is paying for that care, that kind of psychological care that she needs now?
Yes, the group of sailors in the United States, they emphasize that the 2,000 Ghana cedis should be spent on her medical examination. They believe that once she has been bleeding, once she's been complaining of severe abdominal pain, and also believe strongly that this will have some sort of psychological effect on her. They are sponsoring the medical examination and also the psychological treatment.
But overall, a lot more assistance is needed for this lady. How are we making sure that we get the right assistance to her, other than what we're just doing? Is there any formalized way?
Yes, Roland, as you and Mama V make the appeal on television last week, if anybody wants to assist this poor girl, I think that the best channels will be working to any of our multimedia offices, Joy FM, Multi TV, or Adom FM, or Better Soul, Insha, and Love FM in Kumasi to donate through the multimedia office, poor girl will receive it. As we speak down, Mr. Dixon again also promised to assist her to further her education. These are areas that need assistance. And don't forget, the granny also needs a livelihood, something that can keep the family going. The story behind this family is a bit sad because the granny, unfortunately, this girl has a handicapped, challenged mother who apparently has four other children by the granny who takes care of them. And she spent 3 months to gather spent or use sachet water. So she's able to raise only 20 Ghana cedis in 3 months to take care of the rest of the family. And the poor girl has been supporting the granny by selling ice water. And it was through the sale of ice water that 5 men defiled her and have sexual bouts with her in turn. So if anybody, there's anybody that at all you think this family can be in need of, you can support them because they need a lot of our support to survive Roland.
Well, thank you very much. We hope that the needed support will be coming, just like already witnessed. And Ohimin Teria giving us the latest update on a 14-year-old young girl who was raped near death by some individuals who are since in the grips of the police, and the police are also investigating the matter further. But we have to take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking about Ghana's market leader in food seasoning products, Onga, breaking the Guinness World Record. And we know that there was an event in which long tables were told over a number of them. And this was at the Independence Square here in Accra. And hopefully it should enter the Guinness World Book of Records for the next year. But please, we'll bring you the latest update on that. We're taking a break. We'll be right back.